Hello, my name is Anna Cook, and this is my Module 1 for EDL 856. A little bit about me. I'm married to my husband, Ryan. We've been married for 3.5 years. We're both musicians, and that's a big part of our life. Both teach music for a living. And this April, we are expecting twin boys. Big thing about us is that we love to travel. We try new recipes a lot of the time. We're pictured here at a waterfall we hiked in Hawaii this past March, so that was really fun. Big thing about me, I grew up in Lawrence and I'm a big KU fan, so rock chalk. Didn't go to KU, but we'll always support them. My current position, I'm serving as an orchestra director at a 6A high school, the Kansas City Metro. I direct my feeder middle school, so every day I teach 175 kids, and that's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. 5th year in the Shawnee Mission School District, and it's my 7th in education overall. So I actually started out in central Kansas at a tiny little 1A school called Wilson. The interesting thing about my profession is that I have always taught in Title I schools, so both in a rural and urban setting. I've been assuming several leadership roles at the district and state level. Just served at the ECKMEA District High School Orchestra Chair, and I'm currently serving on the KMEA State Audition Alignment Committee. The sources that we were to read were really interesting. Learned a lot more than 10, but here were my observations. I appreciated becoming familiar with school-based management, which is where some level of power is given to principals and teachers in the budgeting process. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially with varied demographics with different needs. I also appreciated the contrast of centrally managed resource decisions made at a larger site level. That makes a lot of, it just made a lot of pieces click for me because I have seen the district make initiatives and exactly what the article said: consistency, cost effectiveness, and process efficiency. Makes sense whenever you read it in an article. Many school leaders find bookkeeping and building finances overwhelming. This statistic interested me because I feel like I wanted to know if many school leaders, does that mean those who have been practicing administration for a long time? Is it beginning school leaders? Do you ever become comfortable with it? Kind of wanted more information there. Building leaders becoming familiar with income statements, balance sheets, and cash flow statements. How familiar? Do you just need to understand them? Do you need to be able to report on them at a district level? I also thought it was interesting there's a number of resources available to help with the data and transactions. Is it something that you just plug numbers into and it projects a presentation, or how much does it truly aid the administrator? So that was interesting to read about. School finance formulas determining how dollars are allocated to districts. Considering Kansas's recent education funding in past years, this is kind of interesting to read about because being in education during this time was controversial, I think, among certain teachers, and it was just great to get more background on it. States are incredibly diverse in their allocations. I actually really loved reading about Arkansas and how they allocate money for professional development, even though there's no proven benefit. North Carolina has programs that have strings attached, so they will provide funding, but it's not just to benefit. There's a lot of work that goes into receiving those funds. And I was fascinated by the concept of an educational savings account in Florida and Arizona. That concept had just never even, I'd never heard of it, and I thought it was really interesting. Districts allocating staffing positions on one-size-fits-all models. As I'm collecting activities for my administrative portfolio, I've been working with a couple elementary principals who have what we call signature staffers. So I didn't know that it was unique. So that was pretty cool. States are adjusting formulas for funding. I became familiar with the terms of student-based formulas, weighted student funding, etc. And studies are proving a correlation between principal spending flexibility and student needs being met. I wish that it went into a little bit more detail. What needs were being met, and what are they spending the money on? I would love to just read like more details about that. I thought that was really cool. My own observations. So I have had a really high principal turnover. I work at multiple schools, and there's actually been quite a lot of turnover at every school, but particularly at my high school. My high school, I've been there 5 years, and it's had 3 different head principals during my time there. This past year, I had 3 out of 4 new assistant principals. We're on our 2nd bookkeeper, and I really love our current administrative team, so I hope everybody stays. But the principals who had come over to our high school had all been in the district, just at different positions, not principals yet, but they were familiar with the district, but maybe not in the leadership role that they currently have. We've had a bookkeeper turnover. Our district is pretty varied, so we have 5 high schools, 5 6A high schools, and ours is one of 2 Title I schools. So I do understand why the district likes to keep consistency in the funding and allocations of resources that it gives. It's not like you want one area to be favored over another. You want equal opportunity for all of your students. So I do know that our school has more signature programs, but I believe that those are building and staff initiated. They're not district supported. My current principal is pretty hands-off. He really trusts us to do our jobs. He is involved before major submissions. So whenever we do capital outlay, he's involved, and enrollment. He is definitely hands-on in the process, but for the most part, he's very, you were hired for a reason, do your job, you're professionals. Don't, unless we give him a reason to not trust us, he pretty much does. But I know how busy he is, and there's a lot of behind the scenes work that I do not get to see. My own concerns, it's an enormous responsibility. The legal obligations of funding and making sure that the bookkeeping is correct, and advocating, especially working in a Title I school, and making sure that all the paperwork is filed for that. I find that very intimidating. I also come from a fine arts point of view, where typically we're overlooked in terms of resources and finances. In my current district, however, I've never been told no. I've been very supported whenever it comes to finances and advocating for my students, but the very fact that I have to advocate every year for things that I know would benefit students, I think I would just have an empathetic bias toward fine arts. I would be interested if there's mentoring available a first year, especially regarding bookkeeping and the financial process, and if there is a strict set of procedures to follow when taking care of the finances of a building. Is there kind of a handbook on it? Do you follow a calendar? I would be interested in that, because I work really well with structure and guidelines. Here are my sources in APA. Thank you so much for watching.